It's that wonderful time of the year. Game of the Year season.
And while Jeffrey Keighley is throwing his own award show awarding the Deathloops and Resident Evils of the world, that leaves folks like me to put on an award show that matters. An award show that's actually going to give Returnal the respect it deserves. That's right, this year, I'm rebranding the non-Game of the Year awards to the Returnal Awards.
So let's get started.
Best Art Design.
Returnal.
Best Soundtrack.
Returnal. Have you heard those synths?
Best Narrative.
Oh, it's gotta be. Hold on one second. What's up, Roger? We can't do the Returnal Awards? They're sick of me talking about it. They want the non-Game of the Year awards? I should do the intro. Welcome to The Blessing Show, where I break down what's up. So let's talk about what's up with the non-Games of the Year.
The It Came Out of Nowhere Award.
2021 as a year was atypical, to say the least.
It's been a year filled with big surprises. Games like Knockout City and It Takes Two came crashing into 2021 best of lists out of nowhere, and it's games like these that have made this year special. 2021's Game of the Year conversation is less about Last of Us Part 2 versus Final Fantasy VII Remake, and more about Deathloop versus Psychonauts 2, and in my opinion, that makes for a really interesting and fresh conversation.
Some of the best games this year came out of nowhere,
and one of the biggest and surprising fall releases of the year caught me and many off guard, so much so that it deserves its own award for it.
That game is Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy.
If you told me Square Enix had it in them to publish a Marvel game about a group of characters that look like bootleg MCU ripoffs, I'd say I know. Greg Miller made a whole Blessing Show episode about it. However, not only did Eidos Montreal step up to the task of making another Avengers-like outing, they actually did a pretty good job. Guardians of the Galaxy has all the writing, charm, comedy, presentation, and story beats that you'd want from a AAA Marvel game without the shoehorned multiplayer from Avengers. And the result was a surprisingly lovable game that made me fall in love with the Guardians even more than the movies. The best game that you forgot came out this year.
Let's go on a trip down memory lane.
Remember Outriders? Remember Destruction All-Stars? Remember Everhood?
I hate to say it, I hope I don't sound ridiculous. I don't know who this man is.
2021 is another year that feels like it's lasted 5 years long. The first major release of this year was Hitman 3, and that was one of the first episodes of The Blessing Show ever released. I made that episode when I first started trying to grow a beard.
Yeah, it's been so long of a year that I'm growing hair the opposite way now.
My pick for the best game that you forgot came out this year is Maquette. Maquette came out on PlayStation Plus in spring and is a wonderful first-person puzzle game dealing with perspective. It's short, sweet, deals with a story about love and separation, and for me, was a memorable way to spend an afternoon. My most anticipated game that I didn't play.
We all have those games that we tell ourselves we can't wait to play.
Those highly anticipated releases that look cool or maybe follow-ups to games that we loved in the past. Yet somehow those games finally release, and it's difficult to find the mood to play them. Persona 5 Royal, Nier Automata, and Final Fantasy VII Remake are at this point 3 of my favorite games ever. And this year we saw the release of Persona 5 Strikers, Nier Replicant, and Final Fantasy VII Intergrade. These were some of the games I was looking forward to the most in 2021, and yet, like dessert after a full course meal, surprisingly, I barely touched them. Maybe it was because I got my JRPG fill in 2020, or maybe it was the other big releases like Return and Ratchet & Clank taking up my time. But either way, these 3 games remain shining emblems in my backlog that I hope to one day get back to. Weirdest Nintendo decision. Nintendo is one of the strangest companies in the industry, known for releasing generation-defining masterpieces and also making me repeatedly stare at my monitor in disbelief when they do something wacky like announce a Nintendo 3DS that doesn't have 3D and call it a 2DS.
This year, my friend and colleague Andy Cortez coined the phrase weird Nintendo decisions,
aka WNDs, to describe Nintendo's left field antics, and like any year, 2021 was filled with them. Decisions like unreleasing Super Mario 3D All-Stars from stores, along with announcing the Switch OLED when everyone was expecting the Switch Pro, were only the tip of the iceberg. But if I had to narrow it down to one WND as the weirdest Nintendo decision, it would have to be the bundling, pricing, and release of the Switch Online expansion pack. For only $50 on a single membership plan, you can gain access to additional Switch Online features like Nintendo 64 games, Sega Genesis games, and Animal Crossing DLC. And that's about it. And if that offering wasn't sorry enough, it doesn't help that Switch Online functionality isn't the best. N64 emulation doesn't let you remap controls, and the current games available along with the quality of emulation is a bit lacking. It's not all doom and gloom for the expansion pack. There's of course value there, especially if you're opting for the family plan with a family full of Animal Crossing players. But this package is the best example of Nintendo yet again giving us 3 steps forward and then Michael Jackson moonwalking their way back to where they started. The "this should have gotten more love" award.
Every year has those games that come out and fly under the radar.
Those fun, low-key releases that blow your mind and make you ask the question, why aren't more people playing this? 2021 has had those in spades. I often refer to this year as being the year of the indie, as we've gotten games like The Forgotten City, Chicory, Boomerang X, and others leading the charge for niche titles with big resonance. But I can list games in this category for ages. Inscription, for example, came out late in the fall and is a mix of roguelike card-based gameplay and a horrifying escape room. On the more colorful side, we got Dodgeball Academia, a fun dodgeball-based action RPG with a Cartoon Network-like art style. And then there's Operation Tango, a PS Plus co-op game that meets somewhere in between It Takes Two and Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes.
All of these games deserve more love, but my winner for this category is Dark Pictures anthology House of Ashes.
Coming off of Man of Medan and Little Hope, this latest entry from the Until Dawn studio feels like the result of taking in the learnings of all the aforementioned titles. The cast is filled with characters that you'll love to hate and hate to love. The choices have the perfect amount of weight, and the results of those choices subvert expectation in all of the right ways. This was a story that felt more interesting to dig into the further and further it goes, and has breathed new life into the Dark Pictures series, so much so that I can't wait for the next game. Best New Old Game.
It wouldn't be a year of gaming without remasters, remakes, and ports of older games.
This year we saw PlayStation release multiple director's cuts. Bethesda released Skyrim for the 36th time, and Rockstar put out the weirdest re-release I've played since Nintendo wouldn't let me remap controls on the N64.
That said, I'm a big fan of remasters.
Being able to revisit old classics in new ways is always a good thing in my opinion, and this year even introduced a couple of games I was able to experience for the first time because of new releases. Disco Elysium, the final cut, allowed me to jump into this deep RPG about a detective with amnesia, and the additions like full voice acting are what sold me on jumping in and falling in love with the game. My winner for the best new old game though has to be Mass Effect Legendary Edition. 3 all-time classic RPGs in one package, and if my time playing the first Mass Effect for the first time is anything to go by, this is a great way to fall in love with the trilogy. The This Came Out the Wrong Decade Award. As I'm writing this script, the world is currently going crazy for the new Halo game, as G4 TV is airing Attack of the Show, and I'm wrapping up a playthrough of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
If this N64 controller currently in my hand is any indication, this year has been filled with throwbacks.
Games like Kena Bridge of Spirits and Biomutant harkened back to the days of the PlayStation 2 mascot platformers with varying levels of success. But then games like Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, Hot Wheels Unleashed, and Nerf Legends have been a throwback to the days of licensed mid-tier games. The game that I can't believe came out in 2021 though is Balan Wonderworld, a game that was promised to be a successor to Sonic the Hedgehog and Nights into Dreams, but ended up being a mess of archaic design and baffling decisions. I wanted this game to be so good, so bad, that upon release of the demo, I gave it a shot immediately. But the weird one-button control scheme, janky movement, and weird musical numbers made for a 2021 title that belongs in a discount shelf of a 2001 Game Exchange.
And now it's time, the moment you've all been waiting for.
The 2021 Non-Game of the Year Game of the Year Award.
When picking the winner of the 2021 Non-Game of the Year, a lot comes into consideration.
We like to give praise where praise is due, and early this year we received a AAA title for the PlayStation 5 that helped kick off the first year of the console from a studio that has been putting out quality work for years. I'm talking about a game where you repeat levels over and over again, putting your skills and knowledge to the test. A game with breathtaking visuals, industry-leading design, a plethora of weapons to use, and a house filled with mystery and intrigue. I'm talking about Hitman 3.
Hitman 3 is the culmination of what IO Interactive has set out to do with the Road of Assassination trilogy.
Like I mentioned earlier, one of the first episodes of The Blessing Show was a deep dive into Hitman's design and what IO has established as a studio, and it still stands impressive now that we're at the end of the year. Hitman 3 is a bit of everything: the freedom and player choice of Deathloop, the stunning art direction of Ratchet or Psychonauts, and the wealth of content and ways to play of an ongoing game, all culminating in what seems to be the final outing for this era of Hitman. With an assortment of levels added since the first game, new tools and dynamic ways to approach taking out your targets, along with writing and scripting that turns any individual level into living, breathing environments, Hitman 3 is the most impressive Hitman game and easily the winning candidate for the 2021 Non-Game of the Year Game of the Year Award.
Just kidding, Ghost of Tsushima Legends Director's Cut is the real Non-Game of the Year. Roger, roll the hype reel. Hold on one second. What's up, Roger? There's no hype reel. They're sick of me talking about Legends too?